This conference will now be recorded.
Chaturmukha Samarambham Vakbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadi Rogan Sadadanushaktan Asheshakaya Prasrutan Asheshan Aulsukya Moharadidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. So we will have a quick session today. First of all, in our last session, while explaining the Paradi Gunas, 10 Gunas, I doubt one of the participants in the session told me that I told the Parimanam as Parinamam. So I'm not sure, I could not cross check. Anyway, sorry for that. It is actually Parimanam, not Parinama. If I have made such a wrong pronunciation, that should not be, or that should be corrected. That is not the right word. It is Parimana. And we will continue to see the remaining 3 more gunas in that list. So in our last session, we discussed up to Prathaktvam. And today it is the Parimana. We will start with that guna itself. So Parimanam is the measure or the measurement. It is told, it is defined as Parimanam Punaha Manam. So that qualification which enables a Dravya as measurable, that is known as Parimanam. And as we all know, it is a very important guna as far as our Ayurvedic or the practice of Ayurveda is concerned, isn't it? That comes everywhere, isn't it? Even in the very gross sense, I think when we are considering like the measuring of a dravya, like karsham or prastham, it is all about manam. There are some minute understanding also. Sometimes you see the bahu or alpam type of manam is also there, isn't it? Adhikam tatra samshodhanaihi sthaulya balapitta kabha or prabhutam. So all these things actually accommodates this idea of manam or parimanam in it. Tarkasangraham defines it as some mana vyavahara sadharana karanam parimanam. Okay, it is the same idea, nothing new about it. Its perspective is a little bit different, that's all. And we can see Tarkasangraham classifying the parimanam as anu, mahat, dirgham and hraswa, 4 types or divisions. But I think in our Ayurvedic practice, we are using this parimanam in more elaborate contexts. Everywhere, I think everywhere, this manam or parimanam is very, very important. Now, the next guna, which is again included in this 10, is samskaram. Samskaraha karanam madam. That is how Charaka explains it. Samskara karanam madam. So samskaram is karanam. Here the karanam means samskaranam. Samskaranam. Chakravani is explaining it in his commentary. Gunandara adhayagatvam samskaranam. Samskara. So it is that samskaranam, processing, so as to make a dravya receive or accommodate a guna from outside, from another dravya or something like from outside, which was not there earlier or which was not there originally. So that qualification of a dravya which enables it to accommodate or receive a new guna, that is known as samskara. Samskaram is defined in a different context as samskaro hi gunandaradhanam uchyate. So gunandara adhana, receiving or accepting, accommodating gunandara. So this is very important, isn't it? In our Annakalpana, in Bhaishajya Kalpana, when the Churna Kalpana is made into Vadagam, then it is becoming Lekhu. So that Lekhutvam is received, it's newly added to the Churna, isn't it? Agni Samparkad Lekhimanam Bhajandite. Or in the case of, see, Payo Abhishyandi Guru Amam. Amam Paya. Guru and Abhishyandi. Yuktya Shrudam Ado Anyadha. So that samskaram called boiling, Shrutam, that makes it Anabhishyandi and Lekhu. Yuktya Shrudam Ado Anyadha. So that is making the dravya to such a stage where it is capable of receiving, accepting, accommodating that new dravya. Lekhutvam comes, which was not there earlier. So that guna is known as samskar. Then the last one in the list is abhyasam. Abhyasaha is defined as bhava abhyasanam abhyasaha Sheelanam Satata Kriya. Bhavabhyasanam Abhyasaha. So it is Abhyasanam. What is Abhyasanam? Avartano Abhyasaha. Avartana. It is repeating something again and again. Vidyabhyasa. Yogabhyasa. Isn't it? There all comes Abhyasa. So that qualification which enables gaining some acquaintance or experience or practice in something, so that the gaining acquaintance with something, that is that qualification, that quality is known as abhyasaha, satata kriya, doing things continuously. So we will find in certain things shilayed, anushilanam. So in all these contexts, there is an element of abhyasa. We find one famous quote, Abhyasal prapyade drishti karma siddhi pragashi. So karma siddhi pragashini drishti abhyasal prapyade. So there is abhyasanam, satada kriya. By repeated practice only, you can gain that karma siddhi prakashini drishti. You can gain that insight. Karma siddhi prakashini drishti. Okay, so that is about abhyasa. So these 10 gunas, paradi gunas. Now we have seen how often we use these ideas of paradi gunas. They are so commonly used. They are not sparingly used. They are very, very common in our day-to-day vyavahar operations. They are known as I mentioned earlier, samanya gunas. But maybe because of their over familiarity, we do not give the due consideration to them, I think. But in my personal opinion, as we are not giving due consideration to these paradi gunas, our chikitsa or many of our interventions are becoming very casual, whether it is roga nirnaya, whether it is dravya nirnaya, whether it is dosha vikalpa nirnaya. I think this application of proper application of paradi guna is very important to give the sort of precision that such exercises deserve. Charagacharya actually gives very importance to it. Of course, in words they are highlighted. How is it? Iti swalakshanayukta guna sarve paradaya. After explaining all these things, he is concluding it. Paradayah sarve gunaha iti swalakshanaihi ukta. The next line is chikilsa yaira vididaihi na yadhavat pravartate. Yaihi aviditaihi chikilsa na yadhavad pravartate. Without proper knowledge of these paradi gunas, the chikilsa will not give proper outcome. So if our chikilsa is not giving proper outcome, one point, one important area that we have to review could be whether we are giving proper attention to these paradi gunas or not. When we start explaining these things, Charaga uses another word, siddhyupayaha chikilsayaha. Chikilsayaha siddhyupayaha. Siddhyupaya, the upaya, the tool for ensuring siddhi, outcome, proper outcome. So that siddhyupayam of chikilsa is a proper understanding, proper knowledge, and proper application of these paradi gunas. I hope that communicates or that tells us the importance of learning the paradi gunas in theory and practice. So that is about the paradi gunas. Now this we started our session with a note, with a comment that okay, we should have a chapter called Gunadi Vidnyaniyam. Not Gunadi Vidnyaniyam, sorry, Gunabhediyam, isn't it? Like Rasabhediyam, we should have a chapter called Gunabhediyam. So we should have an overall idea about this gunas. Many times different authors or different schools of thought enumerated gunas for their purposes, to meet their targets. For example, we saw that, okay, in Charaka Samhita we find this Sartha, Guruvadayo, Buddhi Prayatnanda, Paradayaha, Guna Prokta. So when we enumerate, we find that there are 41 gunas. So Charaka finds that these 41 gunas are required to explain the concepts that he is elaborating in that textbook. Maybe in a different school of thought, it may be different. We don't find such elaborations in some other textbooks. In a different school of thought, say for example, in a different system like Tarka Sangraham, say for example, we find 24 gunas only. And in that 24 gunas, it is something like a selective combination or a particular set where many of these gunas what we see in Charaka Samhita are there also in that 24 also, but many of them are not there. It's only 24. So certain gunas like see dharmam and adharmam we will find in Tarka Sangraha, which is not included in the enumeration by Charaka Samhita. But of course, he was bothered about dharma and adharma, isn't it? All the textbooks we can find that, okay, if dharma can be considered as a guna, definitely there are references about dharma, dharmartha kama mokshanam arogyam moolam uttamam, because the dharma purushartha siddhi, it's a concern. So the context decides how many gunas are to be explained or how many are required, all these things. In Ashtanga Hridaya, we find a clear dominance of the 20 Guruvadi gunas, Vinshati gunas. But in another textbook of Vagbhada, in Ashtanga Sangraha, after explaining all these things, he gives a mentioning about Indriyartha, Vyavayi cha, Vigashi cha, Pare guna. As a Purva Paksha, he is presenting it. So he accommodates Indriyartha, Vyavayi and Vikashi. Of course, this Vikashi and Vyavayi are mentioned, but that idea is negated. You need not consider them as separate gunas. In Sushruta Samhita, we will find another set of gunas. But anyway, Vagbhada in Sangraha definitely takes the Indriyarthas into consideration. Hridaya Vagbhada is not considering even that. Of course, he is very conscious about the Indriyarthas. In Sharirasthana, we find them, but in the enumeration, I think we won't find it as such. That's all. Actually, what is the aim of learning about these gunas? The purpose of learning gunas in Ayurveda? That is an important question. Then only we will find that it is essential, it is to be learned. Actually, the aim is to have a proper understanding of the Dravya. And ultimately, to connect three important principles. What are they? One is dosham. Second is shariram. Third is dravyam. Dosham is dravyam, shariram is dravyam. So there is no separation about these three principles ultimately. But technically, we consider, or we try to explain doshas are dosha, shariram is another explanation, and dravyam, what we find in the form of ahara, aushadha, or whatever it is. Yasmin rasadayo yacha bhaudigi murti vasridam taddravyam rasakalkadi kalpana siddham aushadham. So our aim is to connect these three. That is our purpose. So you may be recollecting certain opinions like guna ya ukta dravyeshu sharireshu api te tatha. So whatever gunas are explained in the dravya, same gunas we find in the explanation of sharira as well. Obviously, in the case of doshas as well, we find the same guna. So what? Sthana vritti kshayas tasmad dehinam dravya hetukaha. So kshaya, vritti and sthanam of the sharira is ultimately caused by the usage of dravya. Whether it is yukti yuktam or ayukti yuktam, whether it is proper or not, that defines the outcome. So that is the purpose, to link these three factors to establish some sort of a bridge so that they can be used, the dravyas can be used for various purposes in the form of ahara or aushadha in different contexts where we need to manipulate doshas so as to maintain the sharira in swasthya. So ultimately we need to learn dravya. And while learning a dravya, that is also an important point, Dravyadi Vidnyaniyam. While we are going to learn a dravya, we have to be very careful about certain factors. When a dravya, let it be maybe a piece of stone or maybe a metal vessel or a fruit or a piece of wood or a dried fruit, whatever it is, when we see it as an object, when we see a dravya as an object which can be seen, it is there on our tabletop, it has got certain peculiarities. We are taking all these peculiarities into consideration while we try to understand a dravya, like its shape, isn't it? The shape is very important. A flower, it has got a peculiar shape. The designs, isn't it? When we cut a root and look at the cross, that cut face or the cross section, we find certain features. That is an akriti. Then the color, varnam, gandham, its peculiar texture which we feel by sparsha. Then the special type of sound it makes when knocked or hit with an object, another object. Then its mass. Then many other things related to it, like its habitat, its habit. Many things may be there. So we will be when we learn an object, a dravya, we will be learning many things about it. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, our aim is to understand how this particular dravya can be used for the sake of maintaining the swasthya of our sharira. That is our aim. So another important observation is how the sharira will respond if this dravya is administered as food or as medicine. What will be the response of the sharira? That is also an important observation. Actually, it is based on that observation of the response of a living sharira when a dravya is used, ingested or applied, that we understand, we infer, we assume, make assumptions about the gunas of that dravya. Karma bhistu anumiyante. But many things are not like that. For understanding the color of a dravya, you need not wait for the usage of that dravya as bhakshana, as ahara or aushadha. You're seeing it. This is yellow in color. This is red in color. This is black in color. But whether it is Shita or Ushna, Snigdha or Ruksha, whether it is Vishada or Pichila, such things I think we have to wait for the response of the Sharira. So these are the different planes of understanding a Dravya. And that is how the lessons of Dravya or Dravya Guna Vidnyana is becoming complete. Now we have to classify, we have to understand them separately, like the gunas which we are used for the nama rupa jnana of a dravya. And second is the gunas which we use for the bheshaja tattva or bhaishajya tattva embedded in a dravya. These are different. That is why so that nama rupa jnanam and the bhaishajya tattva jnanam, they are different. Our area of interest is actually precisely Bhaishajya Tattvajnana. Charaga wants us. Na nama jnana matrena rupa jnanena va punaha oshadhinam param praptim kaschid vedidum arhati. By knowing the nama or by knowing the rupa, that is what we told nama rupa jnanam. By knowing these two things, nobody is supposed to understand Oshadhinam param praptim. Param praptim, the ultimate use of that dravya as an aushadha, that cannot be made out by knowing the nama or rupa. Na nama jnana matrena rupa jnanena va punaha oshadhinam param praptim kaschid vedidum arhati. Then how it can be used, you should how it can be attained, you should know how this can be used in the body, in what matra, in what kalpana. For that you need the gunam, and that gunam is ultimately an assumption based on the response, pratikarana, of a living body towards that particular dravya when consumed. And that Vaidya who knows this particular Bhaishajya Tattvam is known as Tattvavid. It's known as Tattvavid. Yogavid. Yogavid is becoming Tattvavid. Yogavid means somebody who knows how to use this as a medicine, how to use this as a ahara, as part of a chikitsa. So these ideas are very important, and we will further discuss in our next session something extra. I think we will go back to Ashtanga Hridayam text, maybe after explaining a few of important ideas in behind this Dravya Guna Vidnyana. Slowly we will go back to our Ashtanga Hridayam text. With this, we will conclude today. Sorry for the early conclusion of the session. And if we have some questions, again, we will discuss it in one of our future sessions. Okay. Thank you very much, and Shubharatri to all of you.
Thank you, Prasad sir. Today, as sir told, we will conclude our session today and continue in our next session. Thank you, everyone. Shubharatri to all.